Good day, learners. You are welcome to another study session on our course Eco 112, Elements of Economics 2. The last time we met, we talked about the public sector and the way the public sector finances its operations. And so that made us to discuss on public finance. How does government raise money? How does government spend the money? How does government plan for future income and expenditure in terms of budget? What are the various forms of budget? Why do governments borrow? So these are some of the things that was discussed in the last class. Today, we are discussing another topic: economic growth and development. Economic growth and development. You will observe that we have been talking about the goals, macroeconomic goals. And we always mention that government should be interested in attaining economic growth. What is economic growth? And how is it different from economic development? What are those things that we can see in an economy that will be able to know that truly this economy has grown? These and some other things are the things that we want to sort out in today's session. So at the end of today's session, you should be able to understand and define economic growth. You should be able to identify the determinants of economic growth. You should be able to list and explain the meaning of economic development. You should be able to itemize the characteristics of developing economies. And you should be able to explain the meaning of economic development planning. What is economic growth? Economic growth is a sustained increase in a country's real output. When we say sustain, it's not that the output will increase this month and then next month it falls, the other month it falls, the other one it increases. No, it has to be sustained. It has to be gradual and progressive. When the output of the national output of a country, like we taught you national income, and we taught you one of the approaches of national income is the national output. If the output of the entire nation keep increasing, and the value, of course, when output increases, prices will goes up over time. Price will go up, and that will make the national income to increase. So whether the output is increasing on the national income or the income per head, what's called the per capita income that we were taught some times ago, will also have to increase. So this increase in output and income of a nation over time is known as economic growth. We always calculate the rate at which an economy has grown. What it used to be, the output, and what the output is now. We find the percentage change. That is the rate of growth over time. What are the determinants of economic growth? The first determinant of economic growth is capital accumulation. That is investment in acquisition of additional stock of capital, establishment of new factories, new companies, establishment of social and economic overheads, investment in human resources and physical resources and capital resources. All these ones are capital accumulation. Capital accumulation is the acquisition of physical and non-physical capital that are important to improve output over time. The second determinant that will determine whether economy will grow or not is technological progress. Technological progress. That is the change in the method of production, moving from the obsolete means of producing to modern, more efficient, and more innovative way of producing, embracing research and development, which we call R&D. Growth in proportion of labor force to total population. If an economy has to grow, there must be proportionate growth in labor force. There must be growth in labor force. Abundant labor is important. Even though the entire world is moving toward capital intensive means of production, but labor is so key in every form of production that leads to growth. And when we talk about the labor, we're talking about active, young labor that have the capacity to propel productivity. Then what is economic development? Is there any difference between economic growth and economic development? Yes. Economic growth, we have said, is increase in output over time. This increase in output will translate to increase in general national income over time, or increase in per capita income over time. But development goes beyond that. Economic development is economic growth plus positive changes. It is almost a common thing for output and national income of countries to increase over time. If you go and check the national GDP, GNP of any country, or even per capita income, you will have seen that they have been increasing over time. If you go and check through the statistical records, you will see that they are increasing over time. But that is growth. Development goes beyond that. Development now entails, does that growth translate to positive changes? Does it improve the quality of life of people? Does it improve the standard of living of people? Does it bring about a high degree of self-reliance in the economy? Does it actually reduce poverty, unemployment, and inequality? Does it promote self-sufficiency? So, just increase in output or income is growth or economic growth. But how does this translate to improvement in the lives of the people? How does it improve the quality of the life of the people? How does it improve their life expectancy? How does it improve all other indices of living standard? So that is economic development. Economic development, therefore, is economic growth plus positive changes resulting from that development, and that sustain innovation, improvement, modernization, quality life, and the rest. How do we know whether a country is a developing country and whether another country is developed? Normally, economies are classified into two. There are developed countries in the world, countries that have attained high rates of economic development. And there are countries that are upcoming. We call them third world countries or developing countries. How do we know that this country is not yet developed? How do we know that this country is still a third world country? How do we know that this country is a developing country? How do we know that sometimes we call them less developed country? How do we know that this country has not fully developed? A number of characteristics will tell us that a country is not yet fully developed. One is the level of living, standard of living. A country that is developing will have a low standard of living. The quality of life will be very low. People hardly eat 3 square meal. There is no enough food, no enough income to take care of them. Another thing is the low level of productivity. Compared to the developed country, developing countries are characterized with low level of output. While other countries are producing in mass, in large quantity, the developing countries are producing in small quantity, sometimes at a subsistence rate that does not guarantee even selling it to other people to enjoy from what you are producing and earn foreign income. High rate of population growth because of the level of awareness, because of the level of social development. There could be high population growth without any plan to take care of the generation being given birth to. This will have a tendency of retarding the economy and causing the economy to be backward, thereby making the country a developing one and not a developed one. Well, predominance of agricultural sector and primary product export. Most of the developing countries rely so much on agriculture, maybe because that's the traditional occupation, but they don't improve on it. They only do it at subsistence level, no improvement, no means to make it produce at large scale so that we can consume and export and make money. And sometimes we also rely on primary product that they are already in their natural source, and you sell them to other advanced country to import refined product, and then you pay heavily on the refined product. A very good example is the crude oil and our economy in Nigeria. What do? We can get the crude in its original form. We cannot process it into final product. So what do? We sell this crude to the developed countries. They will change it to finished product and sell it back to us. And when they sell it back to us, they even earn 2-3 times better than we have sold to them, because they have added value to it. But why are we selling the crude to them? Because we lack the technology to change the crude to final products. Now, rising level of unemployment and underemployment is also another feature of underdevelopment. You have a large number of people, army of youths, who are not employed, who are disguisedly employed, or who are not even employed at all. This will not make them to contribute to the national development and national output, and in so doing will retard the potential growth of the economy. Widespread income inequality. A wide gap exists between the rich and the poor, because the poor does not have the potential to produce and consume. It relies on the rich. So, and the rich take the advantage of his unemployment, poor situation, and the rest to exploit and make more money from cheap labor from the poor, thereby widening the gap between the rich and the poor. This is not good for any economy, and it is a characteristic of developing countries. That's why you see that most developing countries, there is a wide gap. The rich can buy luxury cars of millions of naira. They can build houses of billions of naira. And the poor, which most of the time have greater proportion of developing population, will be there, who could not even afford 3 square meal or even afford a slippers. So this is another feature of developing country. Then external dependence. Most developing countries depend on foreign countries for importation of the basic needs, for technical knowledge. Even sometimes politically they interfere on the affair of these developing countries. So all the external dependence does not give them full autonomy to run as a nation of their own, and this will definitely retard their growth as a nation. Then we move to development planning. What is development planning? Well, planning is a conscious effort made at ensuring that resources are properly allocated to achieve a goal. Everybody plan. That's why people say if you don't plan, if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. Government also plan ahead of time and say, okay, let's do this next year. Let's do this in 5 years' time. This is our intention of what we want to achieve as a nation in 100 years' time. This is what we want to achieve as a nation in 20 years' time. That is planning. Conscious effort on how you want to manage your resources you are endowed with over a set of period of time to be able to achieve a number of goals. That is what is called development planning. You want to develop. So in the course of trying to develop, you want to improve on the allocation, distribution, as well as the utilization of the resources in your disposal. So development planning is a maximization of the social welfare of the people through efficient allocation of resources. Conscious effort to plan ahead of time. Why? What are the objectives of development planning? Why do we have to plan? Or for what purpose are we planning? We plan, one, for optimal rate of economic growth. If you really want to grow, you have to plan. Even as an individual, if you want to grow, you have to plan. So government also wants to grow, they have to plan. Now, to stabilize the price in the economy, you also have to plan. The best way to stabilize price is to produce more. Let the market be jam-packed with varieties of goods so that consumers will have choice. And for you to do this, you have to have a policy for mass production so that the market is studded with varieties of goods. And people must also have the potential to buy those goods. Because if you have mass production without the purchasing power of the people being high and effective, there's no way they can buy those goods. So the best way to stabilize price is to encourage mass production. And when you encourage mass production, you also empower people to have the purchasing power. Development planning is also important to generate full employment. Sometimes it may not be attainable to have full employment, but high rate of employment is a desirable and achievable for every economy. So government plan to say, okay, let's provide job for the less privileged, for those who don't have job. In the course of doing that, there must be a structure on ground to plan for the youth. You see what happened during the protests, and we have large number of people in Nigeria who trooped out in the protest. Why? Because they are not gainfully employed. So government, a responsible government is expected to have a good plan for the teeming population to ensure they are fully engaged and then they contribute to the economy of the country. Government also plans to reduce inequality. You can see we have been talking about income redistribution, a gap between the rich and the poor. It is not good enough for any economy. The gap, there's no way everybody can be equal, but the gap should not be too much that some people cannot afford 3 square meal and some people can afford to travel all over the world in a month. So there must be a way to plan to get the excesses of the rich to satisfy the poor or provide for the basic needs of the poor. And then for a country to be reliant, we've just said it, that most developing countries are not dependent on, they depend on foreign countries or organs of governments instead of being autonomous on their own. So if you really want to be on your own, you have to plan within your natural endowed resources to ensure that you have what it takes to be on your own and then take decision on your own and then grow on your own. Finally, for us to have a desirable standard of living, government has to plan. For us to have a living standard that is of quality, government has to plan. Just like individual plans, when I want to get married, when I want to, how many children do you want to have, where I want to work, the course I want to study, the way of life I want to live, how I'm going to build my house. So government also have to plan. And the planning of government will have a collective effect and impact on the entire welfare of the people in the entire country. So these are reasons why development planning are so key and important. Thank you for listening. We'll meet again in our